My guest is a legal advisor. He's also a corporate and financial consultant, and he's very much interested in political activities in Nigeria. Please welcome Mr. Peter Appio. Mr. Appio, a very warm welcome to you.
Morning, Bayo. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now, you're a financial consultant. Let me start from that platform. Have you ever managed any financial transactions in Nigeria, even though you're Nigerian?
Yes, in 1989 I was recruited by an American investment bank called Security Pacific to assist in a special finance unit, and one of the projects we worked on was the Third Mainland Bridge, and we were successful in persuading the federal government to fund the completion of the bridge. We were acting for a group of the contractors on the project.
You're also very much interested in politics, but from your perspective abroad, how do most people in your category see Nigeria?
First of all, I would say that every Nigerian is very interested in politics, and every Nigerian is a politician. Well, one of the reasons why, when I was invited to appear on this program, I initially had some reservations, but I thought I should come on, and I'm very grateful for you inviting me, was because some of us overseas are very concerned about the situation that we see developing here, particularly vis-à-vis 2007. And it's not to say that those of us abroad have a greater understanding of Nigeria, what's going on politically, but we see things from a different perspective. That's the difference.
What's your perspective?
Normally, I have to say I've been quite lucky since 1989 in guessing or predicting what might happen next. At the moment, it's very difficult to tell what's going to happen next. The political ground seems to have fragmented. The great political figures of yesteryear have died or are no longer relevant. And there's a lot of confusion in the situation at the moment. We've been used to having a North which has been extremely cohesive, that could rally behind one candidate. That's clearly not the case at the moment. The South is agitating for the presidency because they feel that the oil wealth that they've helped to generate from their region for which they've suffered, and they haven't had an adequate reflection of that, either in economic terms or political terms. So it's very difficult to tell what's going to happen. The towering figures of Awolowo and Zeke are no longer there. So can you point to me anyone in the southwest or the southeast or the south that really are outstanding political figures?
Well, why are you so bothered about the political landscape? What about the economic landscape? What about the leaving, the yearning, the aspirations of the everyday Nigerian? Does that engage your attention as much as the political landscape?
The two are inextricably together. Politics, to some extent, is a function of economics, and economics is a function of politics. What politicians try and do all over the world is distribute scarce resources amongst their constituency and come to agreement with those from competing constituencies. So what's the major talking point at the moment, other than 2007? It's resource allocation.
But why 2007? Why not day-to-day governance? 2007 is still 2 years away. So, I mean, I'm putting myself in your position. Why would I, as a Nigerian, living in the relative comfort of London, be so enamored by what's going on in Nigeria?
Well, on a personal point, yes. I've been invited by 2 or 3 companies to look into the possibilities of investing here, because these companies feel that the progress that has been made since 1998, that Nigeria now represents an attractive investment opportunity. And of course they're concerned, so they'll come to someone like me and they will say, we would like to invest in Nigeria, we'd like to make a long-term commitment, but what do you perceive are the political risks? Will our investments be safe after the year 2007, or will there be a chaotic mess and will we have to withdraw or lose our investment? So that's why the 2 issues are so important, and that's why I'm personally interested at this moment in time.
Well, what makes you relatively knowledgeable about Nigerian politics?
I had the fortune to be dragged into politics by some friends of mine in 1989. Chief Fani Kayode and Fafadan Prince-Well were part of a group that coalesced around Umaru Shinkafi in the NRC, and from 1989 to 1993 we were all fairly active. And so we saw a lot of things in those days. We were almost like a think tank to Shinkafi. And one thing I found about him was he was someone that would accept advice or opinion from whoever it came. He never turned you away. There was none of this big man syndrome. So we became quite close to him, and we were involved in quite a few of the key events that took place in that period. And that's what sparked off my interest.
Well, the point I'm trying to make now is that people like you and the people you have mentioned, you're no longer spring chicken. Do you see a problem of leadership in Nigeria? Why aren't the younger folks blossoming?
Yes, this is definitely a problem. To an extent, it's a problem all over Africa. The old men, wherever they are, don't like to hand over power. Look at Houphouët-Boigny. He was in his 80s and could hardly walk, and he still wouldn't leave power. Look at Mugabe. So it's a general thing in Africa. The other problem I feel, why we haven't seen a blossoming of politicians of our own age group or younger, was for 15, 18 years or so, the military were there. Therefore, they had no avenue where to practice politics or gain the relevant experience. So there was a large chunk missing from that formative experience. So that's the problem that we now have, that we're to some extent relying on those that actually had the practical experience of managing Nigeria, which is a very complex task. It's not an easy job. So it's very difficult to place your faith now in young men who haven't had the expertise, who haven't had the experience, and who haven't held the positions. That's why we have that gap at this moment in time.
Okay, so you're back here in Nigeria, but you've gone back and forth over the years. Each time you come to Nigeria, what are the major changes that stare you in the face?
One I have to say is Abuja. I mean, Abuja, I remember going there in 1992, 1993. And there was virtually nothing there. Now it's a huge city with a fantastic infrastructure. I have to say that since the demise of the late Sani Abacha, the country seems happier. There's far much more going on. If you go into any restaurant, you'll see a lot of expatriates there enjoying themselves and relaxing, which we didn't see during those days during Abacha's
What about
regime.
Nigerians? I mean, shouldn't Nigerians have a lot more disposable income to do the things that expatriates are doing here in our country?
Yes. Let's be perfectly honest about it. Nigeria has come nowhere close to achieving its economic potential. And definitely the average Nigeria must to some extent feel cheated and disappointed that we haven't been able to develop economically as we should have done. And I think some people are a little bit unfair with the present administration. When you consider the damage that was done to our reputation overseas internationally by the Abacha regime, and you consider the financial atrocities that took place and the mismanagement that happened prior to Abacha, that this government is trying very hard to put right a lot of the things that went wrong consistently for a period of almost 20 years. This country was completely mismanaged, let's be perfectly honest about it.
Being a financial consultant and residing in one of the big financial centers, which is London, you definitely are aware of the debt relief, the debt forgiveness to some extent that has been granted to Nigeria.
Yes.
How do Nigerians in the diaspora react to this?
Well, I think anything that is done to reduce our debt internationally is a good thing. I think that something should have been done beforehand, and I don't think that the Western powers have been particularly generous or friendly about the way they approach the issue, either for Nigeria or for that matter for Africa in general. This announcement that was made in Gleneagles about the debt forgiveness that was going to save, I think the total interest payments for the whole of Africa for the debt that they'd written off was a mere $1.5 billion. General Abacha had about $5 billion in London in accounts. So that would have paid for those countries what they've forgiven for at least 3 years paying that debt back. So it wasn't, the Gleneagles announcement wasn't as generous as it seems. And Nigeria, in my opinion, has been rather victimized unfairly by the Western financial nations in their approach to this issue. And it's only taken the doggedness and sheer determination of the head of state in insisting and saying, no, he's not going to agree to all this and he's not happy about the whole thing, to force him into a position where they're now behaving more reasonably. But even so, I think there's still an area to go. And I'm not entirely happy, but it's the best that could be done in the circumstances, I think.